Hello everyone, my name is Brayden, this is Airless Cool 9, and in today's video, we're going to talk about Kobolds, the tricksters and servants of chromatic dragons. Cowardly cousins to chromatic dragons, kobolds serve draconic overlords as warriors and servants. These scrappy menaces mimic the behaviors of their dragon masters, though their small stature and recklessness makes kobolds poor imitators of dragons, but they lack in ferocity. They make up for zeal and ingenuity. They are especially adept at creating traps and setting ambushes. Kobold scales resemble those of chromatic dragons that live near their warrens. Rarely, kobolds possess features evocative of metallic dragons or other dragon-like creatures. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the 2024 stat blocks for the kobold. We are going to compare those stat blocks to their 2014 counterparts, and we're going to discuss what changes have been made to them, if any. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight to it. We're going to start with the Kobold Warrior. In 2024, the Kobold Warrior is a small dragon of neutral alignment. They have an armor class of 14, an initiative of +2, 7 hit points, a speed of 30 feet. For their ability scores, they have a strength of 7, a dexterity of 15, a constitution of 9, an intelligence of 8, a wisdom of 7, and a charisma of 8. For their gear, they have 3 daggers in their possession. Senses, they have a dark vision of 60 feet and a passive perception of 8. Languages, they know Common and Draconic, and they are challenge rating 1/8 creature, granting them 25 experience points and a proficiency bonus of +2. For their traits, they have Pack Tactics, which allows them to gain advantage on an attack roll against a creature if at least one of the kobold's allies is within 5 feet of the creature and the ally doesn't have the incapacitated condition. They also have Sunlight Sensitivity, which states that while in sunlight, the kobold has disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. Finally, for its actions, the Kobold Warrior has a dagger, which is a melee or ranged attack roll, the +4 to hit, and a reach of 5 feet or a range of 20 to 60 feet. And on a hit, it deals a 1d4 +2 piercing damage. So, this is a pretty nice stat block, but let's go ahead and talk about what changes have been made. So you can see here, I've placed each of the stat blocks next to each other, and I've underlined some of the key changes here to these two stat blocks. First off is that kobolds are now considered dragons, so they are no longer humanoids, which is a nice benefit for them. They've also been granted the neutral alignment, which in the 2024 rules means that the stat block can technically be of any alignment since they are neutral. That means they are able to tend towards any sphere of alignment, which is kind of the new terminology for 2024. They also have an increased armor class of 14, which is 2 higher than they had before, and they've been given an additional hit die as well, so their hit points have gone up by 2 from their 2014 iteration, so that's kind of nice to see as well. There is the addition of the gear section in the 2024 stat block. This has given them 3 daggers in their possession, and the reason they have done that is because the dagger attack in 2024 is now a melee or ranged attack roll, which is why they have given it the ranged increment there. And so the kobold can decide whether or not to make melee attacks with its daggers or possibly make ranged attacks, though do keep in mind that it only has 3 daggers, so if it makes 3 ranged attacks, it suddenly has no more daggers in its possession. Now, in comparison to that, they have now removed the sling from the stat block, and I think this is alright considering they have given the Kobold Warrior additional daggers just in case it needs to make ranged attacks, but honestly, the Kobold's probably going to want to get into melee combat regardless, because Pack Tactics is such a good trait for them. The only other real change that I want to mention here is that there is a really a nerf to sunlight sensitivity. So the Kobold now has disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls while in sunlight. And in 2014, this used to be disadvantage on attack rolls and wisdom perception checks that relied on sight. So the ability checks have completely replaced the wisdom perception checks that rely on sight. And so that is a pretty big change. But honestly, if you're having your kobolds fight in sunlight, then you're not, what are you doing? Of course, that does allow players to make advantage of this. And honestly, the full disadvantage on ability checks isn't going to be crazy in combat. So I don't see this as being a huge mechanical detriment to the Kobold stat block, but it is something to mention because it does have a mechanical difference. All right, now we're going to move on to the winged kobold, otherwise known as Urds. So in 2024, the winged kobold is a small dragon of neutral alignment. They have an armor class of 15, an initiative of +3. They have 10 hit points. They have a speed of 30 feet and a fly speed of 30 feet. For ability scores, they have a strength of 7, a dexterity of 16, a constitution of 9, an intelligence of 8, a wisdom of 7, and a charisma of 8. For senses, they have a dark vision of 60 feet and a passive perception of 8. Languages, they know Common and Draconic, and they are a challenge rating of 1/4, granting them 50 experience points and a proficiency bonus of +2. Much like their warrior cousins, they have the pack tactics and sunlight sensitivity traits. And then in the action section, they have 2 special actions. The first of these is Dragon Tooth Blade. This is a melee attack roll. They +5 to hit and a reach of 5 feet. And on a hit, it deals 1d6 +3 piercing damage. And finally, we have Chromatic Spittle. This is a special ranged attack roll with a +5 to hit and a range of 30 feet. And on a hit, it deals 1d6 +3 damage of a type chosen by the kobold from among acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison. So that is pretty neat. I like the options there. So here are the main changes between the 2014 and the 2024 stat blocks. First off, of course, is the change to the creature type. They are now dragons instead of humanoids. They are considered neutral alignment instead of lawful evil. They have an increased armor class of +2, which is pretty good. And they also have 3 additional hit points, which they did not have. So that's also a nice buff. Next is that small change to sunlight sensitivity, which I talked about in the last stat block. And then the action options here are completely different from the 2014 versions. In 2014, they had the dagger attack, which was a melee option, and then the dropped rock, which was a ranged option. And it's kind of a funny action option there. But honestly, I like the new version just a little bit better. It's a little bit more flavorful, and it does slightly increase the damage potential, especially with the melee option for the stat block. So nice improvements there. Overall, I think the Winged Kobold turned out pretty decent. But yeah, those are the Kobold stat blocks. You can see there's only 2 of them, so not much to talk about. But thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you like this type of content. We're going through every monster in the 2024 Monster Manual. I'm also uploading videos of a campaign that I am running called Sands of Doom, so check out those videos if you like actual plays of D&D campaigns. But thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. See you later.